Hello everyone and welcome to a new video in our Python series. In today's video we're going to be talking about something that is very interesting and very vital in programming, which is functions. So we're going to be using functions in lists. So let's jump right into it to actually show what's a function and how we are actually using. This is not only in lists, but we're just showing the example in lists. So as any good programming practice, we are starting with our names, one of the simple ways, and with the date for 2020, and with the purpose this time, which is going to be using functions in lists. So let's actually understand, what's that? In lists. So let's actually understand what's a function. Now, in the list methods that we have seen and so on, these are built-in functions of Python. So that means it has its own code and it's running and you're just only using the function name. Now, how do we do our own functions? Actually, why do we use functions? Let's start with that. Why do we use functions? The main purpose of actually using function, which is the main purpose in coding actually, is you want your code to be as small as possible. And functions actually help you do that. So let's suppose you have a function that does some sort of purpose, and you might actually use this function several times in your code. So you're not going to write this function like 100 times each time you want to use it. No, you're only going to write it once and you'll call it 100 times, which is very, very different than writing it like a code consisting of like 10 lines and you're just going to write one line each time you just want to call the code. So let's actually start with the syntax of a function. So we start with the def. Now, okay, so actually, what's the exercise that we're going to do? So we have a list. Okay, we want to remove the duplicates in the list, and then we want to return a new list. Okay, so this is pretty simple. So we're just gonna call it remove duplicates. Okay, so this is the syntax. We just call it def, and this would be the name of your function. This is what you're calling it with, and in the parentheses, sometimes some functions don't need any arguments, but in here we do need, which is gonna be our list. So let's call it an L, and then we get our columns. Now, as you see, we indented, so this is quite important while you're coding. After you basically declare the name of your function and your argument, you're gonna indent it. Okay, so let's actually start. So we said we wanted to return a new list, so we have to actually, have a new list or an empty list, which is going to be list 2. Now let's think about the logic. We have some lists consisting of numbers. Okay, so let's actually do it this way, because we want to highlight what we're doing. So let's call this the main program. Now, what we have here is not the main program. What we have in here after the comment, this would consider to be the main program. So let's call it a list 1. Let's have just like a bunch of numbers that some of them are repeated, some are just, they exist. And then let's put them in different positions to actually see how it might work. Okay, so this is our list, right? As I said, when we want to declare, so we still don't have it, but this is basically our list. So we want to think a bit about the logic. So what could you think of using? Like, you want to iterate through each and every element. What we would actually use for this is for loop, where you just have a variable for I in our list. But we'll just call it L because our argument here is L, which is the same thing as this list. It's actually the same. Okay. But then, so now our for loop is iterating through our list. That's great. But we wanna, remove. So how do we actually think about it? So if the I, which is this, as you know, this L is the list, and the I is being assigned each element of the list. So with each iteration, which is gonna be the I, so if, let's suppose with the first number, if 11, okay, not, and this is probably the first time you're seeing this now, not in list 2. Now what does that mean? So if our I is not in the list, what are you gonna do? It's not in this list. See, this is an empty list. What are you gonna do? Let's think about the methods, the list methods that we've known. So list 2 dot append. And by the way, the append is a function. If this is a built-in function of Python. And I. Okay. And voila. Now did we finish? Not really. We have to return list 2. I mean, remember, list 2. Remember when we said we return the list? This is returning the list. Now, if you don't print it, list 2, if you just print list 2 after that, you will have it. It's already, so now it's already assigned to list 2. Okay. I mean, if you think about this sentence, you'd really think this is completely English. It just looks like code. Okay, how do we now call our function, right? We want to call it, we want to use it in our main program. So remove duplicates, L, list 1, sorry, and in here you're calling the function, but if you print it, you'll get nothing. So if you run the program, you'll get nothing, but if you print it, however, you'll get your list 2. And another one here, and voila, we just got our very first function with no duplicates whatsoever. This is the base of the functions, See, this is your program. If you think about it, and imagine maybe, like as I said, you want to use it 10 times more. You can. You're just gonna print several lines, and it saved you a bunch of data and so on, and it's very helpful. This is basically the use of function. Now let's go with something a bit, extensive in understanding functions. Okay, so let's suppose we are calculating our grades, we're seeing the average, we're seeing the lowest, and so on. But that's the thing, we're trying to make, our main program pretty tiny, something like that actually. So let's actually start with it. So first of all, we want to get our quiz grades. This is a function for you to get your quiz grades. You're going to be thinking, how do we do that? Very, very simple. So let's start with diff get quizzes. Okay, by the way, this is, I said it previously, but this is called the camel style because in the beginning this is lowercase, and then in the second word would be capital case. Just for anyone interesting, I wanted to actually show that. Now you're thinking, okay, we're getting quizzes grades. Okay, you're thinking, what parameter are we going to use? So we're gonna be using the number of times you had a quiz, like how many times you had a quiz. So let's say we're not actually gonna put a number, we're just gonna put a variable. We're gonna call it Q. Okay, and then we're gonna do as we did the last previous exercise. We're gonna have an empty list, because this is where we're returning the list. We actually need this list for when you're using your average and so on. Okay, so now we actually want to iterate through. Now we're not iterating through this, we're iterating it by the range. For I in range, because the Q right here is an integer. Well, I'll actually show when I finish this part. So for I in range of Q, so let's suppose we have 4 quizzes, it's gonna iterate like 4 times. And we all know that if we don't put a beginning and we don't put the step, the iteration number, it's automatically 0 in both cases. Okay, and then we basically go like quizzes well, I added more Z then. Okay, that's dot append. As I said, this is a function too. Then we'll just make it as a float, and then we'll do the input. And in here, this is the fun part, we're basically asking the user is enter quiz grade. Okay, enter quiz grade. Okay, and then we'll concatenate. Now I haven't talked much about this, but I'll briefly explain it. When you're concatenating, it means when you're concatenating a string, you have to concatenate it with a string, which is what we're doing here. This is an str. We're using the str is a function too, by the way, right? And we're using I, because I first time it got a 0, a value as a variable got a value of a 0, and then it got 1. But we want to obviously start with quiz1, so we just add a +1 right there, and then we concatenate another thing, which is a colon, just to make it look pretty, I suppose, right? This is actually the reason why you're seeing your code look very small in the end. See, you want your main program to be small. This is gonna make it very small. Okay, so now we have our quizzes, we appended it, and then we're just simply gonna return them. We're gonna return our quizzes. Okay, very simple. Now let's actually just write a bit down, write our main program. So this is another important thing when you're doing a program, a Python program, and you have several functions. You want to make sure that each function works. So you'd usually do that in the main program. So okay, so let's call it a K in here, and be like int input. Oh, the int also is a, so these, and the input is a function. All these are functions. Okay, so how many quizzes did you do? Right, so this is basically this K is gonna be your Q. Interesting. Okay, now we're just gonna print our we have to call our function, then put a K right there, and voila. Right, let's run our program. So how many quizzes did you do? Let's say we did 4 quizzes out of 10. Okay, just to keep that. So first time you get a 7, second time you got an 8, third time you got a 9, then last time you got a 10. Right? Then you got your list. Ooh, now what we want to do is get our averages, right? So we're gonna make a function for it. See how our main program is just really tiny? This is the whole point. So now we're gonna call it average quizzes. Okay. Okay. Now you'll be thinking, what's gonna be the parameters for it? Yep, you guessed it very right. It's gonna be the quizzes. We could consider this as more or less like a global variable, because we're using it in more than one function. Usually functions wouldn't see what's in other functions, but it actually works right here. Okay, so first of all, I have to think about it this way. We want to get the averages. How do you get an average? You get the total of everything and then divided by the amount of it. So we have 4 quizzes, right? So we start with the total with a 0. Simply, we just set it to a 0. And then we go for I in what quizzes. We want to iterate through that. And then we're gonna, so each time you're iterating through the quizzes, through that list, you're gonna plus equal to I. Now because I is getting assigned to the number of elements in the quiz, you're gonna have 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 each time. Okay, very great. And then we're just simply, now this gets more fun. Return. Okay, return the total divided by length, which is another function, another built-in Python function. That's not only used for lists, by the way. Okay, then we have it length of our quizzes, right? Okay, and voila, you just got your averages. Okay, so let's print. So average quizzes. Okay, quizzes, you could actually just have quizzes right there. Okay, let's do, so in the last function we're calculating, so let's call it remove lowest. We're trying to find our lowest, but we're also trying to remove it. We're using the function again, by the way. Okay, so let's say an x is equal to the minimum. Remember, minimum of quizzes. And then you'll just go quizzes dot remove x, and then, more than simple or not, you just return your quizzes. Voila. Okay, now let's print our what is called remove lowest. Sometimes naming is helpful, but sometimes it's not very helpful. Right. So basically it tells you right here it's not defined. So so we have to include it in the main program. It's globally for your program, for your function, but not for others. So you have to include it. So let's call it, so let's actually just call it a Q. Let's just call it Q. Let's just call it quiz. That just makes, that saves a bit. And sometimes it's nicer. Okay. Run it. 4. Then 7, 8, 9, and then 10. There you go. You got an 8.5. Removed your lowest for you. So this was it for functions. As you see, this is our main program, which is basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, compared to these that you might have repeated several times for you and throughout your program. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Please leave a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you, and like and subscribe, and thank you for listening.